guys, welcome back to another episode with Fit Thai. I'm so happy to have you here. So today what we want to go over is wrist pain. I want to tell you a story first, okay? So when I first moved to New York, I didn't have any health insurance. No health insurance. Now that's the worst possible thing that you could ever happen to you, right? Not having health insurance. So what happened is that I got a dermatological problem. Yeah, my face was just like going crazy. My body was going crazy. I don't know if it was the water. I don't know what it was, but I had to go to the dermatologist. When I went to the dermatologist, they charged me, over $100 to see this lady for less than 15 minutes. Okay, and after they charged me for that, they also gave me a prescription for whatever my problem was. So I went to the pharmacy to fill that prescription. Listen, when the cash register, the cashier ran up the prescription was $500. Yes. $500, right? And my friend who had a similar problem had the similar prescription. She paid $10 for her prescription. Now it was a tiny bit of prescription. Normally I would ask, hey, can you think you can loan me some? But no, I actually decided that, no, listen, I'm not gonna do that. What I did was I went online and I researched, alternatives, just like many of us are doing. And when I researched the alternative, I found an alternative way in order to treat the problem. The next issue that I had 2 years ago, I was put in the hospital, right? So I was in the hospital and they basically kept me there hostage. So I was there for 7 days, right? 7 days and 6 nights. When I was finally released from the hospital and I went home, it was like the best day of my life, right? Like just feeling that hospital smell wash off me and just feeling like a normal human being. So I was back at home. Needless to say, a couple of weeks later, I got a hospital bill. Guess how much? Over $100,000. The room and board for this hospital that I did not want to stay in was over $80,000. Isn't that ridiculous, right? Luckily, this time I had health insurance, so my health insurance actually paid for majority, if not all. All I had to do was pay the deductible, which at the time for me was only $250. My health insurance paid over $20,000. With that being said, the healthcare system is kind of crazy, so they will negotiate better with health insurance companies than they do negotiate with the normal human being. The normal person like you and I. Now, let me give you a disclaimer. The first disclaimer, I am not a physician. The second disclaimer, anything that your doctor says, please follow it and don't follow anything I say because I'm just a normal human being with normal problems, okay? So, here's the thing. When you have any form of joint problem, whether that's your wrist, whether your elbow, your shoulder, your knees, whatever form of joint problem, you see an orthopedist, right? You search online, you look at the reviews, you go to an orthopedist. The orthopedists normally do 3 things, right? So the first, they do the general check. They check your range of motion, they ask you a bunch of questions, and they could do 3 things. One is either RICE, which is rest, ice, compress, and elevate. The second bit that they will do is that they would offer you any form of over-the-counter or prescribed medication. So you'll get your ibuprofen. Depending on the pain, they would give you higher doses of whatever. Within that same realm, they can offer you a cortisone injection, which, by the way, is not that good for you. Actually, it's not. They will offer you a cortisone injection. The third thing, there are 4 things. The third thing is that they're going to prescribe physical therapy or conservative treatment. So you go to the physical therapist, you learn how to stretch, you learn how to strengthen that joint. So you learn a lot more about mobility. And the fourth thing The fourth, can you guess what that is? They cut you. They recommend surgery. Now, surgery leads to a lot of complications. One of the risks they tell you is that the second you do have the chance of having early onset arthritis, you're more susceptible to osteoporosis, etc., etc., etc. Those are normally the things that basically happen when you go to an orthopedist in regards to problems. When it comes on to the wrist, now the wrist is very delicate, right? It's extremely delicate. And one of the issues that many of us has, including myself, is that repetition. So repetition is just using that wrist too much. And we're just using, and we're not taking care of it. How dare you? How dare you not take care of your wrist? How do you take care of your wrist? You have to stretch. You have to stretch the wrist. You have to put it in both flexion, extension, and you have to show it tender caring and loving always. Not just sometimes, but always. So what I have done now is, since I've been working from home and not working at work, I've developed a number of wrist issues, right? Because I'm always on the keyboard. The next bit is that I've been practicing yoga. So yoga has a lot of chaturangas. That chaturanga caused my wrist not to strengthen necessarily, but give me a lot of wrist pain. You're just on the wrist abusing it, right? So I had to learn a number of different techniques in order to warm the wrist, in order to keep the wrist supple, flexible, in order to strengthen the wrist. Because for one is I am not going back to the doctor. For two, when you normally see the problem and feel the problem, that means that it is a huge problem. It's not just a problem for today. It's something that has been degenerated and been compressing for a long time. So you need to listen to your body. So some of the exercises now that I do in order to counteract this problem is, one of them is this. Simple. So all this time I'm here talking to you, when I do remember, I just do some wrist circles, right? So I just circle the wrist, and this I do it for any number of times. So it's either 10, 20, 30, and then I go back the other way. I hate going this way because it's a little bit harder for me, right? So I do the wrist circles. Seriously. The other things that I do instead of the wrist circles is that I, using the fingers, I go down, I'm in tabletop position. My elbow is facing, the pit of my elbow is facing you, right? I keep this closer to my body and I just do wrist pulses. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I use the same position, lay the fingers on the ground, and basically what I do right here is palm rolls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so if you want this to get a little bit difficult, you just move further in. So now you're putting your weight on your palm. So I move from there and then I just do the rotation. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Make it dynamic. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17. Okay, so then I move from there, the same fingers. Now I put it out to the side and I rock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Notice my elbow pit, you can see it. So it's not like, you know, same thing. And then I move from there. So keep these fingers now, press it down to the ground where I can feel it. And I just do circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you do it the other way as well. Okay, so we move from here, the same position. You don't have to switch position. I mean, you can actually have a whole conversation doing this, and you basically move back. You keep the full palm on the ground. So if you see, what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to sit back on my heels. Okay, so once you do that, and let me be honest with you, there are no particular way that you need to do this. You can do it in any number or any order that you like. I just like to do it a particular way, and it's whatever my wrist is feeling, because sometimes my wrist is not feeling going on it like this, you know, putting my body weight. Sometimes I need to go out a little bit, right? And then the last one, which I really love because this is extremely good for the shoulders, is what you call thread the needle. People that does have a yoga background does this a lot, and basically it warms up the wrist. So basically I'm going to start with the right arm or the right hand, and you come up to the top and you thread. I really like that one. I don't know, I really like it. And then I lastly finish it off, right? Remember we did this, right? Now we do it on the reverse. Remember to breathe. Those are the exercises that I use for my wrist, and that's because I really type a lot for my job. I also use the mouse, so it affects me a lot, especially my right hand, because I'm right hand dominant. That's not only thing, so I get it. I do the exercise. I do take other precautionary measures, so I buy the wrist guard for the computer. I also buy the one for the mouse. I got mine off Amazon, and I use that continuously to help me to protect myself, because protection is better than, I forgot. Anyways, guys, it was lovely having you again. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave it below. I absolutely love comments. I respond to every single comment that I have, whether it's 1, 2, whatever it is. I always take the time to respond to it, information, including myself. So until next time, guys, just give it a try.